I think it's obvious that any creator would tell you that they don't really want their personal life on display unless they're crazy.
Earlier in the year, you dealt with some personal issues that were made very public.
This is true.
I know that it's true.
You can't have even the possibility of someone taking advantage of you or having an uneven dynamic in the relationship. My subreddit is mostly just memes most of the time, but when shit came out, they were really like super supportive, super kind. Don't attack anyone. Let's just support Carson. And that was super cool.
This is the first time we've actually had a globally recognized professional athlete champion on the podcast. Your dominance, Carson, with 8-ball
What?
is something legendary proportions.
Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown. I am Kevin Lieber. With me, as always, is Matthew Tabor. And joining us is, once again, Carson. Carson, thanks for coming back into the Create Unknown.
Hello. I'm glad to be back in the Create Unknown. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited.
We're excited to have you back. It's been a while, and a lot has happened since your first appearance. I don't even know if we're going to get to all the things I want to ask you about, but to begin with,
I mean, there's like this whole pandemic thing or whatever, right?
What's
That's
that
a thing.
pandemic?
Oh, right. Yeah.
What is it?
What?
That's the funny thing about the pandemic is whenever I talk to family or coworkers that are asking me how I'm doing during the pandemic, I'm like, well, things really haven't changed a lot for me. Have they changed for you?
The only thing is I can't travel. Besides that, I'm still, I went from working in my bedroom to working in my bedroom. So not too big of a difference.
You know, something that happened, though, between when we talked last and now is we saw you at VidCon.
Oh, is that?
It's been that long.
Did that happen? Wow, that's crazy. Oh, geez. Huh. I didn't realize. Huh. That's crazy. It's been over a year then.
Yeah. I think it's been about a year and a half.
Wow. Well, nice to talk to you guys again. How have you been?
We've been good, man. You have exploded in popularity in that time.
Have I?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't remember how many followers you had during TCU Appearance 1, but I think it was perhaps a 10th of where you're at now.
What?
Yeah, I think so.
No,
I think
no, there's no way.
No?
Dude.
Really? I think you've gained like hundreds of thousands of followers in the last year. Easy. Am I wrong?
I don't think so. In the last year, probably, but
Think so.
I don't know. I don't think of it like that.
If you were a state, you'd have increased your representation in the House by like 7 seats between then and now. It's that significant.
Yeah.
The Carson delegation
That's a good way
will
of
have
putting it.
increased.
Yeah. Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, I guess, yeah, I've gotten bigger. I didn't even think about that. That's pretty cool though. I'm glad to be back though.
How do you think about it? Because, one thing that I've noticed that you've done, I've noticed Quackity has done this as well, is that you both have created second Twitter accounts that seem like more personal or what's the deal? What's the thought behind having the second Twitter account?
So there's stuff in my brain that I want to put out in the world that I had no outlet for. So I typically just put that on my second Twitter, and so the people that want to follow that Twitter can, but like it doesn't mess with like my overall brand or anything when I'm tweeting on my main account.
So that's something that Matt, you brought up in our last podcast that you wanted to talk about in a future episode, which is the difference between people's online persona and who they are, in real life. I think that's a perfect example of your kind of hypothesis there of how that can change depending on what brand you settle into as a creator or an influencer or whatever, as opposed to the person behind it.
But you do it too, Kevin. I mean, you do one thing when you tweet on Vsauce 2 and
Yeah.
on the socials and stuff. And it's not like it's a different person so much as it's different stuff where you're sticking to
Yeah,
Vsauce 2 related.
it's more you're just putting out a different it's the same theory behind putting out two different YouTube channels. Because you're just providing different content, quote unquote. I mean, as much as content you can fit in a tweet. You're putting different stuff out there into the world. So for the people that want to see that, you have a different location for it, so that it's not all melded together.
Is one more real than the other, I guess is my question at this point, because I think of my personal Twitter tweets as being closer to who I am, I think, than my Vsauce 2 tweets. What are your thoughts on that?
My main Twitter is jokes, generally. Whereas my second Twitter is anything else. Like anything else that's interesting to me, or like stream updates, or jokes that don't fit the main Twitter. It's just everything else. Whereas my main Twitter, it's just I tweet a joke a day, and then I leave it. Or like I respond to goofy tweets that I see, or if I'm promoting something, it's all for that. But as far as what's more real, I mean, they're both really me, but like I'm putting more of myself out there on the second Twitter, I would say.
Do you regret opening up on second Twitter at all?
Yes and no. I'm glad to have the outlet, but I think it's kind of weird that I don't know, it kind of started off pretty small, but now it's obviously got a lot more followers, so I have to think about it again of what I'm tweeting. Uh so I mean, it's fine. I don't. I like having it. I like being able to just put myself out there more, and just be able to spam an account with my stupid thoughts. But I don't. I don't think I necessarily regret it.
Well, another thing that happened, Matt and I also discussed in our last podcast is just we were really like our personal lives were decimated by various events. We oh man, I was supposed to be on a game show of yours, and remember that? Like,
Yeah.
and then I just ducked out, and you were supposed to come on the podcast. And this was like 6 weeks ago. And Matt also had things that just sidelined him, but you have dealt with this as well, very publicly earlier in the year. You dealt with some personal issues that were made very public.
This is true.
And I just I know that it's true.
Kevin,
And-
as you're talking about this, it's like, yeah, our personal crises happen, but ours weren't on the trending tab every 4 days.
They were not. Right. Yeah. Yeah, we were able to duck out and handle things, personally. You really weren't. You couldn't handle what was happening personally alone because you had a lot of people talking about what was going on. So
Yeah.
let's go through that, man. Like, what was that all about?
Well, the first thing, I think, groundwork here, I was the reason that it came out in the first place, so it's kind of my fault that it was dealt with so publicly. I don't think it's fair to say it was out of my control for it to come out publicly. But yeah, dealing with it publicly was a lot more difficult. The very different state of mind when I came out with it. But yeah,
I mean, what I recall, and this is going back, about 6 months ago, roughly. What I recall was seeing, quite honestly, a pretty cryptic tweet from you that made me worried, made me really worried. I remember DMing a couple of your friends. I think Ted was one of them. And I DM'd you, just being like, "Hey, like, what's going on? Is everything okay?" And then eventually it came out like what had been going on with the girl that you were seeing at the time, and eventually things like got made more and more public. But what was it like to have your personal life just on display for everybody to talk about?
Terrifying.
Yeah.
It was very extreme. It was kind of absurd that so many people cared about my personal life, and I think it was a very unique situation because it blew up more and more because of the absurdity of everything that had to do with it.
Mhm.
Just more and more shit came out, and I can swear, right?
Swear away.
Okay.
Is he jeopardizing our
Sorry.
37 cents of monetization?
Yeah. Yeah. No, go
Uh,
go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious that any creator would tell you that they don't really want their personal life on display unless they're crazy.
Mhm.
I've very much learned that in the future, keep it as private as possible. It's a hell of a lot harder when to like take care of yourself when you're putting out all these other fires publicly for people. Yeah.
Here's my big question. Like, here's the big question of the podcast. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Do you think it's a bad idea for people who have very prominent online personas who make their living
Uh-huh.
online to date other people doing the same thing?
Oh, is this the big
That,
topic?
that's my big question. I want to know that. I don't have an answer to it. I want to hear what both of you two think about that concept.
Would you like to go first,
I
Matthew?
can. It's something that I've talked
I mean,
about a lot privately, and it has come up. Um, not with me, not with me personally, but I've dated people who have dated very prominent people and worked with them and worked in the
mhm,
industries that they're in, things like that. And it
right.
just had long conversations about the merits and the problems with that. And so, for example, it's not uncommon at all for an actor to date a stylist or makeup artist or somebody, a hairstylist, uh, who's in the same kind of sphere, understands how it works, understands the demands of it, is around all the time too. It,
Mhm,
it makes a lot of sense, and it's a very complimentary thing. That's not the same though as as like a high profile actor and actress dating each other, and they're always in different places and working on different projects and stuff. So I think there are a couple different scenarios on it, but when we, in the conversations that I had, the consensus has kind of been it depends on the two people and whether they're okay with things like distance, things like really busy, heavy schedules getting in the way, things like one person being popular at a time and another not being popular,
mhm,
being in a supporting role, which is a weird thing. I've when I've been in this situation, I've been obviously in the supporting role because if there's like a D- list of online media, that's what I'm on. Um, so some people who are used to being, the A-list person, it's tough for them to, do the supporting thing at times. So all these dynamics
mhm.
just depend on the people who they're fitting with. And I think sometimes it's a very, very good fit. There are examples of Hollywood couples that are legendary and truly, sincerely happy. And, then there's Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Mhm. Um, so your original question, Kevin, was, do you think it's okay for people like creators to date other creators, or public figures date other public figures, and like how that affects everything, right?
Yeah, essentially. And do you? I mean, and then you could take it a step further and consider whether you would do it again in the future. Date somebody
Right.
who is high profile. Like what are your thoughts on that?
Uh, I would say, I agree with Matthew on that. It really depends on the people, but I don't think it's healthy to make it a very public thing. I don't think it's healthy to make the attention and public opinion on your relationship part of your relationship in the first place. I think it can lead to a lot of strife in your relationships. I would say I personally would never date another public figure again unless it's completely private and no one knows until I'm like married. Because it is because you can't have even the possibility of someone taking advantage of you, or having an uneven dynamic in the relationship and in public. And then there's so many different combinations of problems that could come as a result of that being a public issue. and it's hard enough to keep a relationship together when it's just you two, you know. So I personally would say no, I would never do it again, especially not in front of everyone. It's very entertaining. I think there's a lot of rewards and merits for as far as a public figure goes to have a relationship like that. It feels good to see everyone out there validating your relationship with someone, but at the same time that becomes a very toxic relationship with the public opinion of what should be a one-on-one relationship.
Yeah, I've known some creators who have dated other creators, and
Would you like to name them, Kevin?
not no, 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 I would not. Um,
We should make a
but
leaks tier where for a certain price you just find out all of the things we know.
Dude, you would make a lot of money.
the dirt,
I'd pay for that.
the dirt tier, dirt squad.
Dirt Squad.
And he mentioned, you mentioned that there are like different dynamics at play that could cause problems. I have an example of that. Somebody that I knew who was dating another influencer, and there would be things such as, "Hey, why aren't you promoting me more?" Right? Like,
Oh,
yeah.
you love me, don't you? Why aren't you helping me get more subscribers? Which seems like a really unfair thing to do to the person that you're dating. But at the same time, I also get it, because you feel like, hey, if you love me, why aren't you trying to help me? But you are mixing these two things in a way that I guess is probably great for certain influencers, because I could see plenty of people who are like combining. There's like a multiplier effect where they're sharing audiences, and what are we going to do next together? And oh, I'm Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, and anytime we go out to dinner, it's an event, that sort of thing. But is that the healthiest thing? What do you guys think about that?
No. Definitely not.
Is it bad that as you're describing that, I'm thinking of a thumbnail for a highlight that's Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis kissing, and we put both of your faces on instead? That's going to be a good thumbnail.
What?
That thought lulls me to sleep each night.
What? To answer your question, Kevin, I do not think it's healthy at all. I think it's again, you suddenly are making an echo chamber of people that get a glimpse of your relationship but don't know everything, and then it creates sudden expectations for your significant other or for you in the relationship that are completely biased or uninformed or any of that, and it just makes everything 100 times more difficult. And relationship problems, I mean, relationship problems are difficult, but you're adding on so many more. It's just such a mess. My take here is no.
Was it weird to see people develop into kind of warring tribes on this? Because one element to that made it such a long public saga, in terms of the followers' perspective, is that there were a bunch of different people involved as things played out. And at a certain point, I remember thinking, like, this is kind of Game of Thrones-ish, where it's like, whose house do you support? Like, which flag are you rallying around? Because there's so many people. What was it like to see an audience that's kind of a mass of goofballs? And I mean that in the most endearing way possible. Everybody's rallying around the same attitude and kind of fun approach to everything. And all of a sudden, they're kind of swearing allegiance here and there and splitting apart. What was that like from your perspective?
Generally, most of my fans were really chill about it. Like, my subreddit is mostly like just memes most of the time, but like when shit came out, they were really like hardcore, like like super supportive, super kind, and basically went out and said, don't attack anyone. Let's just support Carson. That's all he wants. And that was super cool. As far as seeing the rest of the internet kind of develop on all of this, it wasn't really about me. Most of the time it was, I think most of the issues were about the other people involved. So it really didn't affect me all that much. It was a little bit nerve-wracking because I was like, what's going to happen next? But I mean, like, I was involved in everything, but also involved in nothing. So yeah.
Ooh. I thought of the other
Ooh.
big question that I had
Oh.
about all of this. Okay, here it is. Here's my other big question. And it is tangentially related. It is this. Okay. So let me preface this by saying, in case anyone is new to the Create Unknown and they're not familiar with Matt and I, we are boomers. We are old. Yeah. We existed on planet Earth long before YouTube, and we were able.
How old are you guys again?
Man, we are both like we are on the south side of 30.
I'm going to look it up.
We're on the south side of 30.
I'm comfortable saying, I'm comfortable saying it because I posted on Twitter, I recently turned 38.
You're 36, Kevin?
Yep.
Wow.
I know. Ancient.
You guys are old.
Ancient.
Hey, shout out though. It's cool that you have this job with that age, dude. There's not much variety most of the time because so many people are so young on the site. So it's cool to have people that are a little bit older than me that I think are super sick to do stuff like this with. You know?
You want to talk about relationship problems? You know what it's like explaining to somebody our age why you're exploding in laughter and what's on the screen is like poo poo pee pee? You know how much of a problem that is?
Yeah. I'm sorry. That's my fault.
It's seriously, that is true. But my point in all of this is this. Matt and I were able to have a lot of our trials and tribulations, let's say, with dating offline and so far offline that it couldn't have been really online if we wanted them to be. So is your generation, are you guys guinea pigs in all of this in terms of trying to figure out how to go through stuff like this online? Because I mean, as ridiculous as this is going to sound to like our younger audience, it's interesting to me that this is still a very new thing. And everyone, your age and younger, kind of seeing this stuff so publicly around the world, literally, because of the nature of the internet. It's weird. It's weird. It's new. It's different. It's odd. And the lessons that you're learning, like Matt and I could learn pretty much by ourselves, in our own ways. But it seems as though people like you have to learn this in front of everyone. Like that is weird.
Yeah. I mean, you summed it up really well. It's terrifying. I don't know what I'm doing. I did not really date all that much in high school, and now I'm in a public figure position, and I think most people generally want to date and find love, but I think there's a lot of challenges that come with being a public figure and also wanting that. So I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll stumble through and figure it out, I'm sure.
Sorry to go back on the boomer stuff, but I just, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about what it must be like for you, like honestly, having a cell phone is a tremendous difference, right? And I remember being like in the 90s, you're 17 or whatever, and obviously you're older than that. But I mean, when you're getting used to all of this stuff, you had to call somebody on their house phone, and their parents were probably going to answer, and so people knew that every time you called, they knew it was happening. And then like, could that person even have a private conversation? Was it possible? Because a lot of people still had wired phones, not cordless ones. And so that level of difference between like, you've got just real-time access to everybody in your pocket all the time from whatever age on, That it's just such a shocking difference in terms of being able to process this stuff and figure out how to do it.
Yeah. I think phones are kind of awful. I think having technology strapped in all the time is probably very taxing. But I am also the worst offender because I don't think I've gone the last week without having my phone right by my side. So I I it's kind of hypocritical. But yeah, I think it's terrible.
Did you think that you were going to break at some point with this when it really got
Break.
crazy? Like you were just plain going to hit a point where you've had enough and you wanted out of online life. That just everything had been put on display. It was stressful enough to where you just didn't want to do the social media stuff anymore. Did you come close to that?
Yes.
How close?
I was talking to my therapist about it. But at the end of the day, this is kind of what I know how to do. It's what I enjoy, and you can't just leave. You've lost all of your anonymity, because the people that know of me now aren't gonna just suddenly forget about me if I leave. I can still get recognized in public anywhere I go. That's not just gonna suddenly disappear. So recognizing that is very good, so that I can take a step back and say, okay, so I can't just run away from this, as even if I want to. So maybe I should just kind of try and keep moving forward the best I can.
Did you have a sense of what career change Carson was going to look like? Like what you
No,
were going to do? No, no sense of that.
no, I have no idea what I would do. I have no clue. I don't have the resume for it. I dropped out of college. I have no clue what I would do if I wasn't doing YouTube.
Would you go back to school?
If I have to, I don't want to. I hate school. I can't stand school, but I mean, if there's no other options, then yeah, I would go back to school.
How long?
So
How,
was go ahead, Matt.
okay. How long did it take when everything breaks open, everything's getting crazy? How long did it take before you hit a point where you thought this is going to be okay? I'm on the other side of this, and I'm going to move on and just continue with everything. How long was this whole process?
I'm not sure. Well, I started getting really depressed even before anything started happening. And then the drama started, and then I was like, whoa. But I started feeling myself again around May, and it started around like beginning of February, everything.
Okay,
So about 4 months.
that's a
I was
while.
really rough.
That's a long time.
Yeah. So like I was at my lowest either end of February or beginning of March. And then I slowly started building back, and actually ironically when the stuff came out, it was like a load off my chest, and I started healing, even if it was not good that it came out. But I did start getting better when that started happening.
I want to be clear that the reason that I wanted to talk about this so much is, again, going back to kind of like that guinea pig idea, is I feel like
Hmm.
this is really important. And I'm sorry that you had to go through this for other people to learn about this dynamic. But and of course, like, your situation does not a rule make. It's not like this is going to happen to everybody, but this can happen. And I think that it's important that as people are growing up on the internet and growing up being, on Twitter all day, or having their YouTube channel, or, TikTok until that gets banned, whatever,
Goodbye, TikTok.
yeah, yeah, whatever it is. I'm hoping that, and part of the reason we do this the reason we do this podcast is to really discuss serious stuff when it comes to being an online creator. And we love supporting and analyzing people who do this for their life. So that is just to say that this is an important moment, and I think, at least I hope, that maybe people can take a look at this situation and I don't know, learn something from it. I mean,
Mhm.
probably not. When it comes to love, people usually just do whatever they feel like their hearts
I
tell them
think
to. So
people
it's not like
I think people will continue screwing up because
it's
that's
not a
human
rational
nature.
thing.
I do
Yeah.
think it's
Uh,
relevant to everybody, though, in a way that more so than most of the topics we discuss, because even though most people listening do not have tremendous followings anywhere online, most of them at some point are going to be in a relationship that the people in their lives know about. And what was interesting to me about following along with all of this is that it honestly was what a lot of people go through just on a massive, freakishly large and open scale.
right.
But it's the
Yeah.
same sort of horror. Like, I remember feeling this back in the Facebook days, the absolute dread that I felt at one point where you had to change relationship status. And at that time, Facebook automatically put it on your feed. Like, you couldn't take it
Yeah.
off, you couldn't hide it. If you change the status, you've updated it and it's like, Matthew Tabor's now single. And it was just the most damning, bizarre thing. You're like, okay, every single person who follows me is going to just see that
Yeah.
I got dumped. Like, this sucks. It was a horrible feeling, and there's no fame attached to it at all. And I think it's like that
Well,
for
you know how
everybody.
you avoid that? You don't put up your relationship status in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. Eventually that's what I did, where it's just like, no, I'm not going to put this on, and then I'll never have to deal with that. And it's not like, it's not like I'm posting thirsty lawnmower pictures and getting, an inbox full of ladies.
What is it with you and lawnmowers, dude?
So like that time has passed for me. So there was nothing lost there. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
anybody who posts, pictures and stuff on their Instagram, it's like, oh, why aren't there any pictures of you and your boyfriend anymore? Like, what happened there? I think everybody feels what you had to feel, just on a much smaller scale.
Right. Yeah. I would imagine. But I think there was definitely some absurdity to the situation that not everyone would deal with, obviously. But I agree. I think it is something that a lot of people could relate to. But I hope a lot of people don't have to go through it, because obviously it sucks.
It reminds me a bit of dating at work is usually frowned upon, right? Like dating your coworker,
Right.
because if the
Right.
relationship sours, then it just makes it miserable for everybody at work. And this is like dating at work in front of the world.
Yeah.
That's why Kevin and I have
Oh.
never dated, by the way. It just
It's
has the
true.
capacity to get too messy.
Ugh,
I mean, I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to date Kevin either.
no. No, my wife would be really upset if I dated either of you, honestly.
Are you married?
Yeah.
Happily?
Yeah.
If he wasn't,
Good.
would he say it on this podcast?
I don't know.
That's a
Do you
good.
have children?
No. But that's funny though. Does anybody say, unless it's like Al Bundy? Like, do you ever actually? That's such an old reference. Oh my god, I'm gonna get made fun of for a Married with Children reference. But nobody says unhappily married. The other thing I wanted to get into while we have you, Carson, has to do with stands, because
Yes.
let me tell you, Carson, Kevin Lieber of Vsauce 2 does not have a lot of stands.
Right.
There are people who like my videos. There are people who love this
Yeah.
podcast, but stands seem to be a different thing, like a different level.
Well, I can't tell you why I have.
What's up
some
with that?
stands on.
What is it? What is a stand? Can you define stand?
Yes. A stan is typically a fan that is a little bit obsessive, or takes like the creator's traits as their own to find friends, I guess. So a lot of stans will typically congregate in the same circles online. They will change their profile picture to a creator, and then other stans will find this person and then try and become friends with them because they like the same person. So these create big social circles that quote unquote stan a creator. And then my opinion is that it can become a rather toxic echo chamber of a lot of people who want to keep friends, and then one has the opinion, and then everyone follows that opinion because they want to stay friends with that person, type of thing. So for me, I've dealt with a lot of stands that have been rather toxic towards me, or found things to they're very nitpicky on a lot of stuff. That this is not the same for everyone, but for me, that's been my experience. Why do you bring up stands?
Well, I remember this being like a whole thing. This is a whole thing about your stands causing problems, and
Hmm.
um, I always hear. I know that the term stand comes from that Eminem song where the guy is obsessed with Eminem and he keeps writing him
Right,
letters, and eventually, he like kills himself because Eminem never wrote him back, and
right.
so it's like, yeah, obsessive fans. Um, but so you're saying essentially like a stand, they sort of make their identity or their online identity based around their fandom of a certain person?
Uh, yes. So, well, yes and no. I think they're all individuals, but the way that stands typically become stands is because they want to make friends, of with people that share the same interests. You'll see all these posts where people will just list a bunch of things that they like, and then say, if you like any of these things, DM me or something like that. And it's just, I think it's a lot of teenagers that are generally just trying to make friends, but then
Mhm.
they put themselves in this social circle, and then just kind of follow the pack. I think a lot of the stands will say not that they take the word stand, which is a combination of the word stalker and fan, and then say, well, we've changed the meaning of the word, and I'm not gonna fight against that. But yeah, I think they're generally just people that are trying to make friends, and aren't going about it in the typical ways, instead going about it in online social circles.
Something happened the same time that you were talking about stands on Twitter a lot, and when the stand apocalypse hit, uh, this tweet popped from Scott Kramer, who's really funny. If anybody
Uh-huh.
doesn't know Scott Kramer, he's got like wholesome humor. It's awesome. I like him a lot. Somebody left a comment on one of his videos that was this long, detailed comment that amounted to, Scott, why are you doing what you want to do? Why can't you do the things that I was a fan of, the funny things that I liked? And
Mhm.
it seemed like this person had become a stan of a thing that doesn't even exist anymore, like almost like a stan of this brand rather than being a legitimate fan of Scott who continues to do, different things, and that everybody does unique stuff with their content. That's just the
Mhm.
evolution of it. And she was so bothered by him being original that she was just way too attached to whatever she was a fan of in the past. Do you feel like
Mhm.
people have done that with your humor?
No, because my humor hasn't really changed. But I would say there is a certain, I want to use the word, and well, entitlement, I guess, that some people get, where they feel like, they supported you through this blah blah blah, and now you owe them. And I think that's a result of parasocial relationships.
It sounds like this starts out like completely innocently, where someone is just like you said, trying to make friends. And also, I want to go back and apologize for how boomer it was for me for me to ask you like what a stan is, but
No,
I,
no
I
worries. I
seriously
think it's a
don't
very new
know.
term.
Yeah, like
It's a new term, yeah.
I'm not privy to that part of the internet, and it is a new term, and it is just seems to be kind of like a new thing, and I don't have, 1,000 people using my face as their avatar, and
Right.
demanding things from me. So so how does my question is, how does it go wrong? Like, how does it go from people just trying to make friends around the thing that they like to demanding that you do XYZ? Like, when does that happen?
Well, uh, well, I have some theories. I have some theories. First of all, I think a lot of them are teens. I think a lot of them are teenagers that haven't really grown up all that much yet. They feel as if they're the only people that, like, their social circle is the only people that actually support and watch or enjoy that content. With my stands, that was very much the case. They say, we've loved you and supported you through everything, and this is how you treat us. When they were being very toxic towards me. um
How are you treating them? Like, why would they say this is how you treat us? What does that
so
mean?
so they would they start on these circles of getting very upset over anything that I do.
Mhm.
um and so I would just say, I started commenting on that, and then they started calling me racist and dragging up things from years ago. Like I said the N word when I was like, I don't know, like 17 or something, and then they brought that back up, and I was like, well, I've changed. I was a stupid teenager myself back then. Clearly don't stand by that now. But then they go from that to then going to another thing, or onto another thing, just so that they can keep being angry. And then I think a lot of them would see their friends being angry over this thing, and then also get angry over that thing, so that their friends would like them or something like that. I saw so many people that don't watch me start ganging up when I blocked a few stands, and getting really upset at me. And it was like, you've never watched my content. Why do you care? So I think it's really just a lot of teens that want to be friends with each other, and they just don't really know how, but then they use that kind of weird social dynamic with the creator as a certain sense of entitlement to them. Like they have say over that creator in a way. Very weird. Does that help?
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Or is that too confusing?
it's not confusing. I mean, we just did an hour and 15 minutes talking about the Jenna Marbles situation, and what you just detailed reminds me a lot of what happened with her, where it seemed like she was getting bombarded and mobbed in a lot of ways, I guess, by people who might have been her biggest fans, or maybe they were not, and they were just joining in on
Right.
attacking someone. So, what is your advice then for handling this? Because it seems like an odd dynamic to me, this like thin line between biggest supporter and biggest attacker.
Well, I don't think any of my stands were my biggest supporters.
Okay.
I never thought that. I think they thought they were. So what would be my advice to anyone that deals with something like that?
Yeah, or advice to people engaged in this, and engaged in wanting to be a fan of someone without, I guess, getting
Well,
drawn
there's
into that behavior.
well, I think, okay, I'm a fan of a lot of people, but I'm not going and then using the fact that I'm a fan of someone as a way to like either make friends or grow my social status or anything. So I would recommend, don't make it your entire personality online. Try to make friends based of who you are, instead of making these weird social relationships online that are based off of just you liking another creator as the same person. As for other creators, I would say cancel culture isn't real unless it's attacking sponsors or brands. Otherwise, cancel culture, unless you really fucked up, you are going to be fine. In fact, most of the time when you are getting talked about, you're getting talked about more and more. It's actually going to help your brand. Just be willing to say, this isn't who I am now, especially if it's something from a long time ago. Like, just say, I don't stand by that, and I've matured since then, so I don't know why you're bringing it up now. What are they going to say? Like, oh, you're still a terrible person now. Oh, how do you know? So I genuinely think you're going to be fine. Just own up to your mistakes, and be willing to say, I'm a different person than I was, and I think you'll be fine. Or if you stand by what you did, then I mean, say that, and then give your reasons, and then the people who disagree will move on, and you'll probably still have a platform. So it doesn't matter. That's my 2 cents.
Another thing that came up that was I think, Matt, did you send this to me? But Carson, you had gone on this little bit of a rant about, and this is a total detour, by the way, nothing to do with stands or anything. This is
No
a
worries.
this is a fork in the road in the conversation. But I wanted to ask you about it because it interested me a lot when I read it, and that had to do with your feelings about getting sucked into shows, and you get sucked into this show, and you
Mm.
love it more
Oh,
than
you've been paying
anything.
attention to my second Twitter account.
Hey, I follow you. Hey, I'm a big fan. I'm not a stan, but I am uh, a big fan.
Well, I
And
appreciate that.
um and yeah, so you get sucked into these shows and you are like moved to your core watching them.
Mhm.
Anime, serialized TV shows, whatever it is, and you say that you essentially have like a deep kind of like longing when they're over. Can you elaborate on
Yeah.
that whole thing? Because I think that that's really interesting.
There's I think it's very easy to get caught up in the world a show creates or a movie creates. And then when you leave it, you're left with a weird sense of longing or a returning to like, okay, here I am in my life. Uh and whatever feelings that show or movie created are just kind of gone or leaving, and it's not like a longing for more of that. It's and because you could have a plenty fine show or movie that tells a great story and you're like that's great, but personally I will watch something and then I'll think to myself, what am I feeling right now? Because I don't know how to describe it besides this weird like longing for something, and I don't know what it is, whether it's like I described in this tweet thread that you're referencing, I described, I don't know if I'm longing for more of the show. I don't think I am. I don't know if I'm longing to create more of more of something like this. I don't think I am. Uh, I don't know what it is, but there's this certain feeling that it leaves me with, and I never really know how to describe it. And I'm curious if you do.
I'm curious what Matt has to say about this first, because I feel like there is something deeper going on here. And I don't know how, uh, like meta we want to get about this, but
Hmm.
I feel like in a lot of ways we are ascribing a lot of meaning in our lives to entertainment. Like we are kind of getting something that we were supposed to be getting from our personal lives instead out of this artificial entertainment edifice.
Mm.
Like, am I getting way too sort of esoteric
I think
about
it's
this
fair though.
or
No, I
philosophical?
think that's an absolutely fair thing to point out. Like it matters. It's different than it was. And as you were talking about that, I was thinking, it is different in the sense that if you watched a TV show in the 80s, the best you could do was maybe talk about it the next day. Maybe. Now, like you use pieces of entertainment to express who you are and what you like and what you find funny and what your values are. I know most people aren't
Mhm.
thinking about values, but um, it is that way. And you're posting clips and stuff about it and interacting with accounts and just all that stuff. And so it's this outward expression that probably is a very new thing. And when a show is over, when it's not there, you lose that. You lose that unless something comes back the way The Office has re-exploded in popularity, but most shows aren't The Office.
Mhm.
They're not even close to it. And one that I liked. I have this feeling. This. I also don't know how to describe it because longing doesn't seem quite right. But the shows that I like are very few and far between because of the genres that I like, and so Justified was one of those. It's been off for a few years, but it's sort of like an FBI agent in Kentucky who breaks up the constantly at war with the family of low level Appalachian criminals kind of thing, and it's a modern western. There aren't a lot of shows like that anymore, and I felt rough. There just wasn't anything for me to watch after that, and I felt like I did not have an outlet to plug into, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And I didn't know anybody who watched that show at all. Longmire as well. Longmire is a modern, also law enforcement Western. I have a bit of a niche here that I enjoy. Um, but when that wrapped up, that was cool. It's like, what do I do? Well, I basically, to be honest, sit around and wait for another Western, and they don't come very quickly. And in the
Hmm.
meantime, I watch old stuff, and that's it. But I felt like, not that it was taken away from me, but I lost a thing that I liked, and that wasn't, it sucked. It sucked bad.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is it
Well,
is it is it a religion thing? Like I don't people are gonna like really like
yeah,
is it
like a
like is it
completeness.
yeah like is it I mean I don't go to church
Right.
is like tapping into these programs that are providing so much meaning where we lose ourselves in them and kind of vicariously experience, a different part of our own like hopes and dreams or whatever. And I know that sounds over the top, but I really don't think that it is. I mean, think about the meme of people who use like Harry Potter as their like window for viewing the world. Do
Hmm.
you know what I'm talking about? It's where where they like view everything through the lens of Harry Potter. Like, what is
Hmm.
that? But in some ways, like a supplanting of you know, a myth, what used to be some sort of like legendary myth of old or whatever, with like a new tale, you know. But right? Does that make any sense?
Well, if it's a
Um,
guiding framework, Carson, what's yours? What are the specific shows that you felt this over?
Yeah.
oh, it's been so many. Uh, no, uh, I think I know what you're getting at, Kevin, and it's one of these things that's very hard to describe, but it does almost feel I mean, I'm not sure how religious I am, but I see how you can say there's almost a certain feeling of wholeness when you watch something that you resonate so well with and love, and when it's gone, it's not necessarily a longing for more, but an almost maybe incompleteness. If maybe that's too much, maybe that's over the top, but I know what you're saying.
It's I think transcendence maybe. It's like you're transcending your right?
Whoa, transcendence.
It
Wow. Okay.
it seems like that in some ways that you're, transcending your own
Mhm.
reality for this other one, and then when that other one is over, the transcendence is
Mhm.
over, and you're just back like sitting in your living room.
Yeah, no, I get it. Transcendence is a strong word. That's why I originally freaked out over it. But like, I know what you mean. Like, I'm down for these conversations. I want to get up my own ass over this shit because I think it's interesting, but I don't usually get the opportunity to. But I agree. I think there is a certain transcendence.
This got
What was
deep.
the most recent one that you fell in love with? Didn't you mention some animes?
Yeah, it's usually anime just because I watch a lot of anime, um, and because a lot of anime is like hero's journey type stuff,
Right.
um, and I really fuck with stuff like that. Uh, I I recently watched a show called Steins Gate, which is an anime that's basically a sci-fi anime, and it was just so well put together and made, and the soundtrack hit really hard in a lot of ways. I watched it in like 2 days, um, and when it finished, I just sat there and like I'm feeling something. There's more of the show too. Like there's more that I haven't watched. There's like a movie, and then there's a spin-off, and I haven't gone into it, but I finished the first season of this, and I sat back and I felt this feeling again that I feel so often when I finish watching something, and I didn't know how to articulate what I was feeling, and it's strange.
I just remembered I have one of my best friends in high school purposefully wouldn't finish a lot of video games, wouldn't finish books, wouldn't finish like long TV series because he
Mm,
didn't want, maybe I never understood this. I always thought it was weird. Like, dude, why don't you beat the game? Why don't you like see what happens and how it ends? And to him, it was like he wanted to remain kind of whatever like place he was with that story. He didn't want to know the ending because I guess then it was over, and
mm.
and that's was sounded always crazy to me, but maybe it's a little bit a part of what we're talking about right now.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
But I would get mad at him because I want to talk about like,
Bro,
dude, like
I would
let's talk
punch
about
him.
the end of the game. Let's talk
I
about
would
the end of
slap the shit out of him. I want to watch that.
can't even have a conversation about what happens at the end of Chrono Cross because you won't beat it.
Chrono Cross. Jeez.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
PS1.
When did that come out?
Yeah. Long time ago,
it must have
Carson.
been like 94 or something,
Long
95.
time.
Jeez, dude. Yeah. No,
not
initial
that
release
old.
date for Chrono Cross was 1999.
Oh.
So the year I was born, Kevin.
Whoa! There you go. Yes, you were an
that's
infant.
crazy.
I did
You were
want
an
to twist
infant.
that's
things up a little bit because I realized about halfway through this recording that this is the first time we've actually had a globally recognized professional athlete champion on the podcast. Your dominance.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, your dominance, Carson, with 8-ball
what?
is something of legendary proportions. Is anybody, can anybody challenge you? Is there anybody who's ever going to be as good as you?
Can I be honest?
Yes.
I want to be completely candid with you. I'm not as good as people think.
Have you been
I lost a lot
underreporting
of
your
matches.
losses?
I know I didn't report my losses. There was no underreporting if you don't report them. All I reported was my wins, and then people would only tweet like the screenshots of me beating them. So it was really funny, and then people just assumed that I was like the god of 8-ball. But like I was losing plenty of matches, but I was playing a shit ton of matches a day, so the wins just kept going up.
So this goes back to some
For
of
those
those
that
themes.
don't understand what's going on, for those that don't understand, there's probably people that are listening that are like, what is he talking about? I played, so like in the middle of all this drama that was going on with me, I started playing 8-ball against a bunch of people on iPhone Game Pigeon. And I'm up to like almost 700 wins now. But
We
like
had
it just became a
695.
meme.
Is 695 the most recent count? Does that sound right?
Let me look. Let me check my phone. I haven't been super proactive with
That's a lot of
changing that.
wins. It's a
I'm
lot
at
of games.
697. I'm at 697.
Okay.
But yeah, it just became a meme during all my drama, and it became a thing, and now people talk about 8-ball with me a lot, which is goofy as hell. But
How did
yeah,
it
no,
start?
I
How
a
did you
lot of
start
losses.
on 8-ball in particular?
So I was playing 8-ball a little bit with my friend Schlatt, and then one day I decided, you know what? I am going to play a shit ton of 8-ball. And that's how I'm going to keep in contact with a bunch of my friends, because I've been super out of contact with people going through all of this. And so I was just like, I want to stay in contact with people, and this is how I'm going to do it. So I started just sending 8-ball requests to all my contacts, and then I started getting a bunch of other creators contact information to also play against them. And it just became a thing that I was the 8-ball guy for a couple weeks, and I tweeted about 8-ball, and it got like 200,000 likes or something, just because everyone's eyes were on me at the time because of the drama going on. So
It was the most masterful deflection I have ever seen on the internet. It was fantastic.
You think? It was so goofy. I was very proud of it. I will not lie. I was getting something like something ridiculous like 10,000 followers a day, and it was just me shitting about 8-ball on Twitter. It's so funny. I literally tweeted, what is it? Well, at least I have 8-ball. 223,000 likes.
Amazing.
That's 250,000 people. Kevin, did you have any big any big themes? Because we have a couple questions that we want to throw at Carson.
No, those were all of the kind of the big topic stuff that I had. So I would love to hit up our baby gang questions for our friend Carson.
Yeah, it's everybody.
Is Baby Gang your Patreon?
Yeah, we've got the Tots, the Dumpster Crew, because we all are dumpster babies to one degree or another. And then the Infantry and Baby Gang make up the elite sphere. Yeah, so we've got, a bunch of people listening in live on this now, and they've shot some questions that super producer Ben W., who is a very healthy Carson fan, by the way. You remember at VidCon, I think I showed you the video where he and some friends did the steamroller art of you.
Yes. Oh, that was him.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Ben did that. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So extremely healthy level of fandom that does not go into standum. Yeah. So he pinned.
Yeah, no, stuff like that is cool. I don't want people to walk away from this and be like, am I a stan? No, don't fucking worry about it.
Semi-stan Ben W has pinned a bunch of questions here, and there are two that are substantial. So I want to get those out of the way, or have the capacity to be. And then the others are rapid fire idiocy that I think is awesome. But Kevin with an E said that you've shown that personality is king. I had low self-esteem at school till the moment I was put in front of an audience in acting class. It's when I grew the confidence I needed to make moves in life and lead me to success. He says, were you in a difficult position in school? And if so, what was the turning point that gave you the confidence to do all of this? And what would you say to somebody who's not at that point yet and maybe in a tough spot?
That's a good ass question.
It's a really good question. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. For me in school, I think I have a very unique school experience than a lot of people, because I had a graduating class of 80 people, very tiny. I wasn't necessarily popular, but I also wasn't like super hated or I was just kind of there. But I did have extremely low self-esteem. Self-esteem is something I've always dealt with. That being said, it's difficult because in high school, everyone sucks. Everyone sucks in high school. You're never going to not suck in high school, but you can think about things and say to yourself, okay, so everyone in high school sucks, but I'm going to be the best version of me I can be today. And honestly, if that is your goal going into every single day, I think that's going to help you so much. And it helped me to be able to just sit back and say, I don't need to necessarily be friends with every single person I need to be friends with or want to be friends with. I don't need every single day to be 100% perfect. As long as I'm doing the best I can for me, that's all I need to do. And what I would say there was a lot of questions at the end there.
Yeah, there were a few. It was, what was the turning point? And then what would you say to somebody who is in a tough spot and hasn't reached that turning point?
If you're in a tough spot, it's okay. Like, especially if you're in high school, it's so normal and it's okay to feel like you're out of your element, because you have so much time to figure things out for yourself and get to where you want to be. And it's really just baby steps. Baby steps are so important. If every single day, I mean, there's all sorts of things you can read, there's a bunch of self-help books, but if you do one thing to help yourself every single day, then you'll, over time, 1% change every single day over time, immediately makes yourself better, way better over time, drastically. I think I explained that very poorly, but
it's a compounding thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so okay to not be on top of things yet. And if you're struggling with things, you can lean on people around you. You'll figure things out, and you'll get past this, and you can keep moving forward, and that's super important. I I genuinely had lots of times where I felt like it was the end of the world, and here I am on the other side. I'm doing my best again, you know? So don't worry.
That's a really good, complete answer. And I was thinking, oh, what did I think
Was
about?
it?
Yeah,
I
it was.
felt
Yeah.
like I was stumbling through all of that, dude.
No, you hit a bunch of important stuff. And when I was in high school, Kid Rock had just become famous. And I remember in one of his songs, he says, "Fuck all y'all." And I remember hearing that and thinking like, oh, that's actually fairly good advice. I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah.
And so hearing an extremely nuanced explanation was pretty good.
I can't believe your self-help advice is Kid Rock lyrics. That's where you learned how to be a better person. It's from Bawit to Ba. so stupid. So, sorry. Oh my God.
Well, this one I actually want you both to answer because it's right on the same theme. Andrew asked, "What was the best or worst experience when you were in school?" I suppose you get to choose.
I hated school. Every single time. Okay. Best experiences were always with friends. Worst experiences were the times when I would have to do something in front of a class because I was terrible at public speaking. Anything with friends that was essentially goofing off and doing something completely unrelated to school while on school hours, I love. There was like in my last year, I had a study hall where I worked at the front desk and just did small little tasks and got to have a nice little area to myself with some friends, and we just did some stupid bullshit during that period, and that was super fun.
It's funny that
Matt,
you say those two things. That's what you do now. You goof off with friends on a massive public scale. The thing you loved and the thing you hated have become one. It's fascinating.
Matt, I have to tell you that I remembered something. So, senior year, I had a study hall right after lunch, and your mom was the aide who was watching the study hall, and I wasn't on her list for people that were supposed to be in that study hall. So I left and I just went back to lunch, and she never said anything. So that entire year I had 2 lunches every day.
The double lunch is the highlight of school.
Yeah. Well, dude, does it get better than 2 lunches?
No.
I mean, maybe 3 lunches.
You guys are
guys
are both like hobbits with like second lunch and third lunch.
Yeah.
Well, Patrick asked, looking back retrospectively on the situation with the narrator in solitary confinement, how can you avoid?
What the fuck?
How can
Wait,
you?
What?
All I do is purvey the questions.
That's ancient.
That's ancient. And the video he popped with
that's like 3 years old. What the fuck? Wait, okay. What's the question?
So looking back on that with the narrator in solitary confinement, how can you avoid friendship breaking conflicts in collaborative relationship?
That's crazy. Okay. I would say be willing to communicate with the people around you. The biggest thing when dealing with, if you want to talk about collaborative relationships, the biggest thing is always communication. If you are not communicating your issues or problems and being afraid to talk about the issues that are holding things back or making things more difficult, then just be willing to talk about them and just know, I think it's important to have a mature way of looking at things where you both know, even if you argue over something, it's not going to ruin your friendship. Looking back at that particular situation for the person asking, I don't fucking know. I don't know how I would have handled that. But in general, I think it's very healthy to just be willing to communicate. And both of you, like anyone that you're in a working relationship with, make sure you're communicating the best you can. and that will help you tenfold.
And his follow-up is, when are you going back to Fazoli's?
Never.
It's rapid fire now.
Okay.
Are you prepared for this?
I was born ready.
Chinchilla wants to know, did pizza get another job?
No.
My satellite wants to know if Five Guys is overrated.
Ooh, I don't think Five Guys is overrated. I think the burger industry as a whole is too nuanced for people to be so critical over every single thing. I think it's interesting how many people shit on In-N-Out and so many people hold up In-N-Out as the best thing on earth. Same thing with Five Guys. It's very strange that people care so much about burgers and burger places. I think it's okay to have different opinions on a variety of burger places from person to person. But it seems to be a big deal. Next question.
Where would you put Five Guys on the tier list, though, roughly?
On a tier list? So I'm an In-N-Out person.
Okay.
But I can take a step back and say In-N-Out is overrated. But personally, I would rate In-N-Out over Five Guys because I'm a big fan of In-N-Out's fresh food.
Yeah.
Like they get it from farms like super close by, and I just really fuck with that.
Well, I'm Your Dad needs to know your opinion on the banana war.
What?
The banana war?
I don't know what that means.
That actually isn't required. What's required here is your
banana
opinion
war
on the banana war, and I think that you should give an opinion.
Well, let me look up the banana war. How about that?
You could always give an opinion without knowing what it is.
Well, I don't want to do that because it could be something horrific.
This also is why we had it. Yeah, we were in a rush getting the live chat going.
The banana wars were occupations, police actions, and interventions on the part of the United States in Central America and the Caribbean between the end of the Spanish-American War in 1898 and the inception of the Good Neighbor policy in 1934. These military interventions were most often carried out by the United States Marine Corps. I have no feelings one way or the other on the banana war. I don't think that's what they were referencing.
Seems unlikely, but if you did have a solid opinion on the actual banana wars, that would have been intriguing.
It would have been amazing. I love the idea of clipping out Carson reads the top line wiki of the banana wars.
Hydra has a good one. How many cats have you petted, approximately? If you can give a rough value.
One cat. My sister had a cat, and it died a few years ago. But I only have really petted that cat. It's gone now. Can't pet it anymore.
Will you pet another in the future?
I mean, I might. I'm a little bit of a cat person. I might get a cat at some point if I'm feeling responsible enough to take care of another being besides myself.
That's cool. Isaac had one that actually is also substantial that I mixed up here. Did your views, you talked about all this stuff in the last months. Did your view on approaching content creation change over that time? Did you come out of it with kind of a different view, at all different with what you're doing?
Yes. I don't know how to describe the change. I can try. Oh man, I'd have to think about it more. That's a tough question.
Is there something that felt different that
I'm not just doing anything anymore? I'm trying to make stuff that I enjoy more, or try to be more open with creative ideas that I want to pursue. I don't know if that wraps up I think it changed, but it's hard to put a finger on what changed in particular for me. So how about I just answer your question with the next few months?
That's fair.
Keep an eye out.
Well, probably the most important question. And it's one that we ask Chad anything for views and John Swan. It's important that we ask you as well. What is your fursona?
A big fucking like raven looking thing with big fucking wings, like huge wings, right? And I've got a huge beak too, and I have I have a bunch of kids that I brought along with me, and they're inside eggs, and I feed them via my beak. I spit in their mouths with my bird food that I brought with me, and I'm a furry, a big raven furry, right? And I spit into their child mouths like a bird. And I'm a raven. I'm a big fucking dark raven.
Dude, can we just pause for a minute and recognize that all of these other questions you were like stumbling on in a way to like gather your thoughts, but the fursona one was like a laser beam answer where you just had like everything like clearly like precisely detailed.
You thought
from
about
the
this.
beak to the eggs.
No, I've never thought about this.
I have a hard time believing that. That was extremely detailed to come off the cuff.
It's because it was a joke, not me trying to sound smart.
I don't believe it.
Oh man,
I'm sorry to call you a liar after all this
when
time.
I come on podcasts like this, I really try to be smarter than I usually am, and it's difficult. But you give me a question about my persona, things get a little bit easier.
It was like you were looking at a poster that you'd recently commissioned of this exact creature.
Well, actually, it's more like 4 creatures because I'm a big fucking raven, and then I have 3 raven egg children, right? And I'm feeding them beak to beak.
Beak
I
to
don't know
beak.
where I don't know where we go from there.
I don't think we go anywhere good.
Actually, what would be great is if anybody listening who is an artist could whip up an illustration of that.
Make me big. I want to be a big raven.
Please do it.
Oh, Andre says I'm on it. APM.
He's already working on it.
It has begun.
Hell yeah.
Oh man, we will share that with everyone once it's completed, and I'm sure it'll be magnificent. Oh my gosh. Is that the end of our baby gang questions, Matt?
That is the limit. We've taken it to the limit. Yes.
Beautiful. Well, my face hurts from laughing at that. I can't wait to see Andre's
Your
depiction.
face hurts.
It does. My
I'm
cheeks.
sorry I caused you pain.
Oh man, it's a good pain. It's the pain of laughter, the joy that you bring, Carson.
Well, that's very kind of you.
Look, man, don't be a stranger. You know, I'm still open to being on your game show, whatever
My
that
game
is.
show. We
Yeah.
already recorded it, buddy. I'm sorry. It's too
Well,
late.
whenever you have another one.
Dude, I'm so down. I'll get you in, and maybe you too, Matthew.
That would be fantastic.
Hell yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day. I know that you have a main channel video that you need to work on. I saw that tweet as well.
Yeah, that's the game show.
Oh, that is the game show. Okay,
That is
awesome.
the game show. Yeah.
All right, man.
And yeah, no problem. I'm glad to come on anytime, dude. Anytime. I actually really enjoyed this podcast, and I enjoyed talking to you guys. So it was fun.
Beautiful. Thanks, Carson.
Yeah.
We'll talk soon, my friend.
All right.
All right,
yeah.
and if anybody wants to join us as our patrons did live during this awesome recording, just go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown for future recordings like this. This is a new thing for us. We're very excited about it. Matt, this was your baby, and I'm glad
money.
that you
Give them money. They need it. Give them money.
Yes, we do.
They
I have to buy some Beanie Babies.
dollar bills over their the create unknown.
Kevin needs a new pair of Gucci Crocs.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been awesome with everybody in the live chat and seeing the reactions, telling little stories and stuff that are offshoots of what you've been saying, Carson. It's a really neat experience. So I'm happy that it worked out, and I really hope anybody who's interested jumps in to be a part of the live stuff from here on out.
What's so funny is that when we were talking about stands and changing profile pictures, all of our listeners changed their profile picture to Matt's profile picture.
In their
so the
display
chat right
names.
now is it's just like 1,000 Tabors.
No.
It's hilarious.
I know.
No, it's good.
I was looking when I was going through the questions. I'm like, I don't know. I can't tell who's who at this point because they're all me. And it's hard enough to listen to a conversation and chime in and read along at the same time and type the occasional response. And then when everybody changes their name to your name, it's a little bit of a scramble. It really cracks your nut.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, indeed. All right. Thanks everyone. We got to go. Join us in the Discord, go to our Patreon. And until then, see you, Space Cowboys.
I mean, Space Cowboys.